I'm so clear on this. I'm tired of the division. I'm tired of hate. I'm tired of people poking other people. I'm tired of people trying to bring each other down. I want to live in a world where we lift each other up. I want to live in a world where tomorrow is better than today. I want where people go to bed at night and have hope. And so everything I try to do, people I try to be around like you, I want to be around you. I want to share this kind of content like Debbie Griffiths. I want to do my job. I think my job, my duty is to help as many people as I can put out that kind of content. So maybe maybe when I die, people will be like, hey, this guy, he nobody knew what the heck he was doing, but there's more good in the world today than there was 80 years ago. And so.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. 400 episodes in. Back in the day, I met with this guy named Dominick, and he said, Dave, I need a podcast for authors, and I think you should do one. And I'm like, no, I'm not even an author. Why would I do this? Who would ever listen to my show? And with a little bit of prodding, Dom said, just do it. And we did. And 400 episodes later, here we are. And this gentleman's been with us to talk about his book way at the beginning, back at episode 100, 200, 300, and now 400. If you can't tell that I like talking to this guy by now, I'm not sure what else I can do to convince you, because this guy is your best new friend. Dominick Domasky is here on the podcast. I'm so glad to have him back for episode 400. It's scary to say that number out loud, but Dom, thank you so much for being here. Glad to have you back.
Hey, David, thank you, and congratulations on Big 400. This is a lot of pressure because I listen, and you're getting better from
Thank you.
episode 1 to 400. You're a superstar, and I don't know that I'm getting any better. So people are going to be like, who's this guy? But let's talk.
You're getting younger every time I see you, which is amazing. I don't know how you're doing that.
Dimmer light in where I'm recording at.
You have a good team behind you, and makeup chair, and all of that. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. It's good. But you're a big deal, Dom. That's good.
I steal my daughter's blush when I have. Is it blush? Cover up when I have too much acne. There you go.
There you go. Good, Dom. For those who haven't heard your voice yet, maybe there's a new listener today, first time pressing play. They haven't met you yet. Tell everybody who you are and where you are.
Hey, love to. I'm Dominick Domasky, number one fan of David Campbell. So whoever thinks they're number one fan, I am number one fan of David Campbell. But I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I have a company called Motivation Champs, and I believe we all have a story. And my goal is to share inspiration, positivity, and smiles, and help those people with those stories to share them with the world. And we do a lot of book publishing and video, but the main thing we do is take people from thought in their head to published authors. So that's me and Motivation Champs, my friend.
Excellent. Motivationchamps.com is the website. I have it up while we're chatting because it's beautiful. Dom, you do a lot in this space to help people, and I love what you do. We want to talk today a little bit about those people who are maybe struggling with sharing their story or getting themselves out there. We've seen so many success stories from your team and the people that work with you on starting with a humble idea and now seeing great success. I think of Debbie, for example. She's a great person. I've had her on the show before. A lot of great people in your world. Just interesting to kind of hear your thoughts about how we as a content creator and author out there in the space struggling with our voice and trying to find our voice and get our feet underneath us so we know where we're going. Some thoughts from you on building us up. Whenever I have you on the show, I feel like you're like that wind-up toy. We used to have back in the day, the little metal toys. You wind them up with a little thing, and they just go. So I'm going to wind you up here, and now I just want to let you go, Dom. Talk us through, how do we get our voice out there and feel confident with our voice?
Okay. And love the challenge, and maybe I shouldn't be so, maybe I should drink less coffee or something so I am not a wind-up toy. But David, love you. So I really wanted to talk about this with you today because so many people are struggling in so many ways when they start to share their story. There's so many doubts. I have doubts. I have doubts today. I have doubts with how my voice sounds. I have doubts with how I look. I have doubts with the microphone I'm using. I have doubts with, will anybody hear it? Will anybody care? Will they say I've heard that story before? We all have those doubts. We all have setbacks. We all have challenges. So to start this conversation, let's go with to go down all these doubts and challenges that people may have when they're beginning to share their story. So the one thing I want to say is practice, 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 practice. Meaning, if you have a story to share, you start to believe, I want to help people. I always use fishing as an analogy for some reason. So I want to help people on every 100 episodes, you hear this guy talk about fishing. So if you want to share a story about fishing, well, tell your friends your story. And then take a walk with your significant other and tell them that story. And then maybe try Facebook or Twitter sharing a component of that story. Then maybe try a live video where the camera faces the other way. It doesn't face you, sharing that story. Then maybe after that, you're building confidence each time you share that story. So we'll start there. Practice. So start sharing the story anywhere you can. So how's that, David?
Okay, yeah, I use the illustration. If you went to a baseball game and you sat up in the stands and you look at the players on the field and went, I could do that. And then you make your way down through the stands, jump over the wall, run up before you get tackled by security, grab a baseball bat, take a swing, hit a home run, ta-da, you're famous. No, that's really not what it takes to get on the field. There's a lot of practice that happens behind the scenes. They just practice pitching, they practice catching, they practice hitting, they practice running around, jumping up and down. There's a lot of work to do before you get on that field and play. Don't just assume that, well, if Dom can do it, Dave can do it, I can do this, and then just jump over the wall with no practice or experience and just think you're going to get success with your first swing. That's not how this happens.
Yeah. I think we need to recognize there are transferable skills. I don't want people to, I don't have these skills. I'm not as good looking as David. I can't do this. So there's transferable skills where maybe you have a certain education where you're skilled in mathematics and you're going to talk about mathematics.
Right.
So you've never done video or you've never done significant writing, but you're great at mathematics and you know it very well. Maybe you've been a teacher, so you've already stood up in front of a classroom, so you're great at writing or great at presenting to a group. So whatever transferable skill you have, if there's something, it could be that people always say, well, we love David's stories, and you're able to be zany and fun. Okay. Well, if there are skills, you start to use those skills. Take what you learned elsewhere and start to use those skills over in this storytelling journey, whether it's writing, podcasting, video. Okay, well, I'm pretty good at this, so why don't I try to do this over here? And then lean in. This is where I probably stand after, I think I started writing my first book in 2005, in June of 2005. Right, and I know that's when I started writing. It took me 8 years to write the first one because I knew nothing. Now, going on 20 years in this world, I know that I lean in more on, let's say, this weird voice I have, or that I'm from Pittsburgh and that I'm nice but slightly aggressive, or whatever. So I lean in on the things that make me me and quit trying to be anything that isn't me, because that's hard. It's hard to try to be somebody you're not. But if you try to be the best David, the best Dominic, hey, then you can do it.
Yeah. And think about, there's things you do today in life that you never knew how to do at one point in your life. And now it's like common knowledge. It's so easy, you don't even think about it. You get in your car, you turn the key, put the seatbelt on, off you go. When you were 16, 15, whatever, that was like mad science. How this car works and how I get on the highway and how I drive and how does this all work? You didn't know. And it just took practice to the point where you don't even think about it anymore. You go to work, you do big things at work, and it's just common because you've done it so many times in repetition that you don't even think about it. It's just, that's who, and you're known for it. You're known for that thing. You're really good at A, B, and C, but there was a point in your life where you didn't know anything about that. So when you look at writing a book or creating content, you think, I can't do that. That's not who I am. Well, it might not be who you are today, but you could become that easily by just doing the practice and putting in the time. That's how you learn things. So you've done it already. So if you're saying out loud that I can't do this new thing, just go back and look at the things you've done in the past that you do today and you take for granted. You can do new things. So you've done hard things before. Just take that same process of learning a new task, which you now do regularly, and apply it to what your next project is. And that will be the basis for you to learn a new skill.
Yeah. And after 400 episodes, David, are you speaking from experience?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, yes.
And sorry to turn this around, but so when you first pushed play, did you have like 20 episodes recorded before you pushed play? Because a lot of people or was it I recorded one and I pushed play instantly?
Yeah, I did one because I wanted to know if it was good. I didn't want to make a batch of cookies and then say, hey, everyone, are these cookies good? No, they're terrible. Well, I've just made 3 dozen, so you're going to have to eat these. No, I just make a small batch, put it out there and go, hey, everyone, taste this. Does this taste like a cookie? Because I'm my first time making cookies. And people are like, yeah, it's great. Okay, then I'll go make more. If they're like, no, you gotta scrap this. This is terrible recipe, or you did something wrong, then I can go fix them and then try better. So that's kind of how I approached it.
I think so let's talk about a segue here to feedback.
Yeah.
Right? This is part of feedback scary. So when we start to do something, I remember when I wrote my first book, I didn't tell anybody for 7 years, except for like my wife, and wasn't even really on social media back then. So when I came out with the book, nobody knew. Now, one of the biggest things I do as a publisher now is offer feedback and sit in, not just from me, but from other people. And we sit and analyze and study. Feedback's so valuable on that content you're posting because now you're putting yourself out to the world. That first time you publish or post. Now, pause here. You can always delete what you post.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't, so many people are so worried about what I'm going to post on next Thursday. Hey, if the feedback's terrible, you can always push delete, or you get the feedback and they say, wow, David, this is really good. You should try to interview this person, or I want to come on your show, or hey, you should do them for 3 hours instead of 1 hour. Hey, feedback might be, hey, at 35 minutes, I have somewhere else to go. Okay, whatever. Yeah. So then you can take feedback. Now it's your book, your baby, your story. So you are in control, but it is good to listen to that feedback and see this person that gave me this feedback. They were offering it based on where they were in the world at their time, that knowledge.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're wrong or right. And as somebody receiving the feedback, you have to assess that. Oh, this person loved me and they gave me this feedback to protect me. This person's an editor and they gave me this feedback because they're an editor. Oh, this person hates me and they gave me this feedback and they never liked me and they don't want me to succeed. So all feedback isn't necessary. Feedback is good, not bad, but understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, and you won't get that feedback unless you do the thing. So a podcast is not a podcast until it's released to the world. A book is not a book until it's printed and in somebody's hands. A song is not a song until somebody hears it. Those are just ideas. Those are just concepts and things that you're working through that only you know about or a handful of people would know about. So you got to do the thing. So if you're an author and you're sitting there looking at a blank piece of paper, yeah, you can share the idea for your book, but you got to start writing. You got to start doing the thing and putting these things out there in the world and then get feedback. We have like beta readers that help authors. That's great to give that feedback and go, your character's wandering all over the page. I don't know what's going on in this book. Right? You're leaving out big gaps and I have to guess and I don't understand what's happening. Well, then you can go back and tweak that and make your book better. That's what we need, is that kind of reinforcement and support through comments.
Yep. And we, as the storyteller, we know the story so well. Yeah. So when we let's say I try to tell you this story on this show in 5 minutes. Well, I know the story. So even if I didn't tell you all the details, I still knew the story. So that happens in a book and other content a lot of times that we don't tell the whole story. And that's one of the things I see most often, like missing body, missing conclusion, because we think we told people, but we
Yeah.
didn't. And that's one of where feedback would be beneficial there. Hey, I don't know where you're going here. And
Yeah.
or you didn't bring it around. What I have beginning, middle, end, what's the win? This is
Yeah.
like the most simplest of story structure, whether it would be this podcast, a show, beginning, middle, end, what's the win? If you can at
Hmm.
least with your storytelling, if you're going to get on camera, if you're going to write a post, if you're going to do a reel, if you can at least have beginning, middle, end, what's the win? You're on the right path rather than just jumping on and meandering or blabbering or show up, and sometimes they say show up and throw up, where you just get on and start talking.
Yeah.
Well, think about it first. Beginning, middle, end, what's the win?
Yeah. And that's what you see for a speaker on stage, right? You are at Creative Con with our best friend and cohort, Julie. You were up on stage talking. You got to have a beginning, middle, end. What's the win, right? Just
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, hook, route, themes that carry you the whole way through. So if we're now so maybe we have storytellers that say, "Oh, what am I going to talk?" Everybody says I should tell my story. Okay, so what's the goal?
Yeah.
I think it's important to know, like we just talked beginning, middle, end, what's the win? What is the goal? If you're going to tell that story, why are you telling it? Is it because you want to get famous? Is it because you want to help people? Is it because you're like David and want to meet 1,000 people and talk to them one-on-one? You love talking to people one-on-one and getting them to share intimate details of their life that they don't share with other people. What is the reason that you're telling that story? And if you can figure that out, then you can tailor the message and the structure of your story.
Yeah. And your story, for most part, needs to evoke some kind of emotion with your reader, your listener, whatever.
Yeah.
As a
Always.
podcaster, early in my podcast days, I never thought this would ever happen, Dom, but I've had people on my show actually break down on the podcast. And I was so awkward in that moment because I didn't know if we're supposed to stop recording, because obviously we hit a chord there and you are like reaching for your facial tissues and trying to collect yourself as you answer the question. And I'm like, do we stop? Like, I don't know what to do. I've never heard people cry on a podcast before. I don't know what to do, but it's happened more and more and more as we get beyond the surface level conversation about the weather and sports to, tell me about your dad. Like, what kind of guy was he? It's like, oh, right. You just at this moment, you're like, oh,
So what do you
okay.
do?
Right. I just keep going. I leave space. As a listener of a podcast, we can over edit everything and take the humanity out of what we do. And I think as authors, we do this sometimes as well. But I leave that gaps in there. I want you as a listener to feel what I'm feeling in the moment, and those big pauses when my guest has to take a big sigh or big breath as they try to collect themselves. I want you to feel that, because that's humanity. That's how it should feel. I'm not going to cut that all out.
Yeah,
I want you to see what that feels like, right?
that's very astute of you. Now, this is a guy 400 episodes in now. He he knows when they're taking a deep breath to gather themselves rather than episode 2, like you said, you didn't know. All of a sudden, you may now David's probably setting them up to ask him a question.
No. So Dom, tell me about that story. No, see, I'm not doing it. No, it's when it's natural. It just happens in the moment. And right, you don't prepare for it, but you lead people down a path where at the end of the time together and we stop recording and they look at you straight in the camera and go, who are you? Like, I've never had a conversation like that before. It's always very, you did the thing. Tell me about the thing, and where do we find the thing? We're done. And they're like, we went totally different level here. They're like, this is the weirdest, most interesting interview question thing I've ever had. Like, this is amazing. And it's really not it's not really me as the host. It's the environment of the conversation, I think.
Yeah.
And giving people space. I back away a lot of the time and just let people talk, because when they talk, they're unpacking things maybe they haven't thought out loud before. They've thought it internally, but they've never spoken about it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you can see them putting two and two together going, I just wrote this book about this subject, and now you're making me rethink everything I just wrote. They're like, oh, I didn't even think about that part. That could have been really part of my book. Oh, and you see them making these things happen in real time. And it's like that side of us that just wants to peer into somebody's life for a moment and go, what's it like to be you? You know, I like bringing that to the podcast.
Yeah. Spectacular.
Yeah. I just think as content creators, we need to bring some humanity back into what we do, bring social back into social media, all these things. We're so quick to put up walls to keep people away from us, to keep us safe. Sometimes you got to let those walls down when you're writing, creating something, putting yourself out there. People know you're not good at this. You've only been doing it for a short time.
Right.
So you're not impressing anybody. Just be you.
Yeah, so I'm trying my best here. You put yourself. That's what we want. We want the authentic you. We want. Me and you had a story. We spoke briefly about our friend Debbie Griffiths before. Yeah. Debbie Griffiths. Here's an author. She had been through domestic violence, faced domestic violence, got through it, raised her children, and had a story to share. And here she is on the verge of retiring. And wants to help other women and wants to help make sure people don't have to go through those same traumas and trials that she went through. And then she puts herself out into the world, and it's scary. Well, she thought, I know. She thought, well, who's going to read this? I see that her content the other day, she posted something that had like 600 comments on it.
I know.
Here, and I saw her. You mentioned our friend Julie Loken at Creative Con.
Yeah.
Debbie came up on the stage and shared her story in front of a panel of people and pitched podcasters and radio hosts, and some of them hadn't had her on before. Maybe they didn't know the story well enough. She pitched, and one of our friends was John J. Wiley that she pitched to.
Yeah.
He has a syndicated radio show across the country. Debbie told her story up on that stage, and John J. said, I want you on my show. And that's the power, the evolution. She had practiced. She was ready. She had this story that was unique to her. And then she went out and shared it with the world. And guess what? The world wanted it and needed that story. And that's a beautiful thing. And so for me, and like you, we just want to help people share these stories. I want to live in the world. I'm so like clear on this. I'm tired of the division. I'm tired of hate. I'm tired of people poking other people. I'm tired of people trying to bring each other down. I want to live in a world where we lift each other up. I want to live in a world where tomorrow is better than today. Where people go to bed at night and have hope. And so everything I try to do, people I try to be around like you, I want to be around you. I want to share this kind of content like Debbie Griffiths. I want to do my job. I think my duty is to help as many people as I can put out that kind of content. So maybe maybe when I die, people will be like, hey, this guy, he nobody knew what the heck he was doing, but there's more good in the world today than there was 80 years ago. And
I like the TV shows that do like the how it was made type thing, where something you're very familiar with, but you don't know how it was created or the idea came from or how it was actually physically created and made cookies and food and all that stuff. Those shows are great. I think as content creators, we need to let people see how it's made from our point of view as we're writing the book. So if you're going to start writing a book today, start your social media, start whatever it is, your website, whatever, and start blogging about you writing your book. Like take people on the journey while you're writing. Today was a terrible day. I got nothing done, but tomorrow I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my thing. And take us on a journey with you. We like the how it's made type stuff Because when it's made and finished, we as your community have been following your journey through the path. We're here to celebrate with you instead of talking to an empty room about a new book because nobody knew you wrote it. Take people on the journey as you do the thing. And that's what I love about podcasting in particular is people get to hear. You can go back today and hear episode 1 of Living the Next Chapter. And then hopefully, as Dom's saying, it's going to get a little better. Over 400 episodes, you're going to hear the progress and the progression of how the show has grown and changed and little tangents we went on and came back to or found our spot again. I just think like watching Debbie, you see how these things were made. You watch Julie in creating a conference from scratch. You see how it was made and you follow the journey. You get to celebrate the successes and you get to see when people fail. And when people fail, you're not there to cast stones at them and make fun of them, but you're there to support them and go, Dom, you got this. Like I've been following you this whole time. I know there's greatness in you. So just keep going. And that community support in the process of creating the thing is a great way to show and demonstrate how it was made.
I love that. And I would encourage everybody, every content creator, every author to play back, repeat replay what David just said. And I think it's so important that in my first time going through the journey of writing the book, I didn't tell anybody. I said that, I admitted that. What a fool I was. And even now, David, me, we should be taking pictures. We should be showing the other side of the office with the
you can't
books beside you and papers and things. You see this, but it is so important to let everybody know. Here's the journey. I'm on a journey. I'm trying to get to a certain place. I want to do this more, 24/7, 365 days a year. There will be days I fall. I try to show like. You'll see me messing up or sinking on a boat or whatever I'm into because I do try to or running and a lot of times I'm out and I'll show you like time was terrible today. Shouldn't have ate all that fried food yesterday. Because I do believe that that's part of the journey. Sure, you can see that times when the book comes out or when me and David are on the podcast here and David looks so handsome and my hair is looking pretty good today.
You're styling.
Yeah. But there's the days of the hard work and where no results, one view. And now I'm going to go a place here because you took us there.
Okay.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. So when we're on this process, we look, because we already said, well, this person did it, I can do it. That was something that was referenced. Yeah, in a way, but we don't know where they are in the journey. Sometimes right place, right time, right message. Sometimes you hit. Sometimes they caught something because they were in a certain place on a certain day. They are no better than you. The world needed, that person started blogging when blogs were taking off. They started on TikTok when TikToks were taking off. They started on Clubhouse 6 months before you did. They were first to market doing something, and now they were elevated to an area, and you think, well, how are they there? And I'm here. Well, they are, and you are. And so enjoy the journey, document that journey. Don't compare yourself to them and just keep moving forward, whether it's one view. So David, with 400 episodes, probably 400 episodes now, airing them multiple places. People reshare. There's clips of them. Probably 1 million people have seen content by David now, maybe more, right? Components of it. Here's a guy, when he started, I know he said, I want to help one person. I want to give confidence to one person. I want to have a conversation with one more person.
Yeah.
And I think probably that's where most of us are. At the end of the day, if you could impact one life, wouldn't you be happy? At the end of the week, if you could impact one life, make a difference in one life, maybe even at the end of the day, maybe at the end of the month, maybe at the end of your life, if you could impact one life and say, I made a difference in that person's life, you probably lived a good life. And with content, it's the same. Think about it. We all say, oh, I didn't hit 1 million people or 1 million views or 1,000 views or 60 views. Somebody watching that said, thanks, David. You know, and somebody watching the interview Yeah, your episode 350, they watched episode 350, listened to it, and said, that's a
Hmm.
special. I'm going to find out more about that guy, that woman. They helped me through something that I was going through. That's special. So do not compare yourself to others. Just move forward. That's what I have on that subject.
Yeah. I had one a couple times as this happened. I do a pre-interview with all my guests for Living the Next Chapter, and we talk. And a couple weeks later, we record. So there's a gap. So when I had my first initial meeting with them, one of the things I tell them is, you coming on my show as an author, you're the expert in the room. I've never written any books. My audience hasn't written any books. So the only one left here to talk about writing a book is you, because you've done it. We're here to talk about the book that you've written that's available to buy. So you're the expert. And they're like, I'm no expert. I'm like, yeah, you are, because I'm not. I don't know anything about this. Even with 400 plus episodes, I still haven't done what you've done. So you are the expert. So I'm going to push back on you a little bit. And in an interview together, I'm going to refer to you as the expert in the room because you've done something. You've learned something. You've done something that none of us have. So you can teach. Because you've done it, you can teach. To whatever degree you think you know what you know personally, there's someone who doesn't, they know less than you do. So instead of hiding that behind the fear of coming off as an expert or like you know it all, you know something that my audience doesn't know. And I'd love for you to share it with them so that you can teach them and help them in their journey. There's an author listening to our conversation today. They have 2 words on a piece of paper. They started 5 minutes ago and they hit play on this episode because something caught their attention. And you get to talk to them. So imagine you sitting at a coffee shop with this brand new author. They have zero idea about anything. And they have your book in front of them. Don't you think you have something to offer to them that you could help and teach them and guide them as a fellow author? You can do this. So every time you tell me you're not an expert, I'm going to push back and go, you're the only expert here. So embrace that and leverage that as a way to help others. It's not about you and your ego. It's about how can you take that knowledge and help somebody. So I'm going to pull that out of you. And every time you tell me you're not an expert, I'm going to turn it around and display to you that you are the expert. So please embrace that title for whatever that means to you and then use it for good.
I'm loving this, David Campbell. I'm glad to know you, man. You're on fire. So,
and I had one author came on recently. She's a retired teacher. And I could tell every time she talked about teaching, she just lit up. Like she was going back in her memory to being in class and being with her students, and that was her joy. Recently retired, and you can tell she misses it. And she's an author, multiple books. And during our conversation, I said, can you really shut off that teacher switch like a light switch? Like, I'm a teacher, I'm not a teacher. I'm a teacher, I'm not a teacher. Is that like when we turn the lights on and off? Is that something you can do, or is that light switch always on? And she's like, it's always on. Even though I'm retired, I miss it so much. I'm like, okay, well, have you ever considered the fact that you're a published author with multiple books? You know things, again, that people don't know. Why don't you teach other authors? Like, can't you take what you know as a teacher and apply it to teaching writing to new authors? So that I, as a new author, could reach out to you and go, I don't know what I'm doing. I have zero idea, but I'm looking for a great teacher. So you're already a great teacher with a skill set about how to write because you've done it. Couldn't you take what you've learned and apply that and teach somebody else? Couldn't I hire you to teach me as a coach? And the look on her face was like, David, I've never thought of that. I've never put the connection between my teaching background and my writing background. I thought they were 2 separate entities that never connected to each other, but now I think I can do that. And I'm going to. And in that moment, she just found her new path from being on a podcast to talk to some guy in Canada. She's like, I'm going to do it. And she sat up straight like, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, looking good. Then put it on your website so I can send people to you. And the look on her face was like, I just found my new identity. I thought it was gone, but it's not gone. It's still there. It's just in a different context.
right. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about second acts, if you may. So a lot of people, whether it's the corporate world, whether it's a career in teaching, they leave one thing and they have this passion for something else, or that same thing, like teaching. Doesn't mean it's over. This storytelling, this teaching, books, podcasting, video, what a great place. It's a perfect place for a second act where you can take your whole life of content, your whole life of learning, you could take it and share with other people on these platforms and talk about expertise. Like you saying, these people are experts. They are experts. They've done it for a whole life. And now think, who would know more about those things than whoever is going in, whether it's somebody in finance, now they're going into a second act and they want to teach young people about finance, or somebody that's been married. I have an author right now. I think you met him one time, Brett Neal. He's been married 46 years, and now he's writing. He wrote his first book was Have a Grand and Glorious Day, a little handbook that he hands out to graduates. This one is How to Have a Grand and Glorious Relationship. Brett's been in the construction business. He's phasing himself out of that. He wants to get into podcasting like David. He wants to help people share their story. But what he knows is he's had a good relationship, great relationship, for a grand and glorious relationship for 46 years. And now he's going to help people, other people walk that path that he's had. So many people have so much value. Share it. Share your story with the world.
Excellent. Dom, you're gracious with your time. And what I love about getting together with you every 100 episodes is you're my reset button to keep going next with the next 100. So as of recording date today, I've already got 438 episodes recorded. So we're kind of going back in time to get this episode done and then move forward. But the episode 500 is going to be coming up relatively soon. So you're going to be back again every 100. I want you back. I want you back. I'm going to track you down. You got to come back because I love hearing your voice. You're a great voice out in the space for people who create any type of content. And everything about you just oozes love and care for the people that you work with. There's nothing fake about Dominick Domasky. There's nothing fake about him. And that's what I love is we need this reset every 100 episodes to get back in touch with you and catch up with you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And like I said at the beginning, I am David's #1 fan.
Checks in the mail. I love it. Dom, tell us about your website again. And I have to ask you this question. I ask all my guests. How are you living your next chapter? See what I did there?
Oh, that's real impressive.
There you go. Yeah, good.
I'm ready. I'm ready for this. Find me anywhere at Motivation Champs, www.motivationchamps.com. We're out really trying to, as I said earlier, just share inspiration, positivity, smiles, 24/7, help other people do the same. So if you have some inspiring content, or if you're looking for uplifting content, come find us. We'd love to share it, help you share it, or help you develop it. How am I living my next chapter? I believe I have a duty to, based on my dad being tough, my mom loving me a lot, that I made it to 46 years of life pretty healthy. I have a duty to help other people. I have a duty to defend other people. I have a duty to uplift. So that's what I'm doing. I think I'm seeing it more and more and more, that if there's somebody in need in any way, whether it's a smile, a door open for them, maybe that's what I can offer. But I just feel that my mission, my duty is just to lift, inspire, smile one more time, and maybe put out a little bit of good in the world. So that's what I got in store for the next chapter.
Amazing. So everyone listening, make sure you remember beginning, middle, end, and what's the win. Thank you, Dom, for being part of the podcast. See you in episode 500, Dom. Hey, everyone, all the information for Dom in the show notes, as always. If you're looking at writing a book and you need a superstar in your corner, Dom and his team will help you. Find out more, go to motivationchamps.com and check out the publishing services that Dom has, because he can really help you with your book. So, Dom, thank you so much. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end of the podcast. That's a big signal to all of the players, the YouTubes, the Apples, the Spotifys, that you found value in this episode of Living the Next Chapter. Just by you listening to the end, you just sent a huge bat signal out to the app saying this was a great podcast, a great conversation. So you listening to this point, you've done your job. I have one more ask of you. If you know anyone that would benefit from this conversation, would you share this episode with them? Would you just get on, send them a message, send them the episode, tell them about this episode, tell them to go livingthenextchapter.com to get all the information about the podcast. Can you do that for me? Because the more people that hear this message, this episode, the better. I want to support these amazing authors. And I know you do as well. So sharing this episode really helps. And I appreciate you. See you on the next episode. And thank you for listening to Living the Next Chapter.